Ashish, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out to do this. Okay, Ashish, so to start with, first things first. First question, at what stage should I, as a startup entrepreneur, be approaching a VC?
So I think today's date, the ecosystem has venture capitalists and investors which participate with founders and entrepreneurs at different stages of life cycle. It could be at an idea stage, it could be at a MVP stage, it could be at a product market fit stage, or it could be at a growth stage. So there are absolutely different stages of life cycle. And the good news is that now India has the ecosystem out there to be supporting entrepreneurs and founders at different stages of life cycle. For example, your fund is at a MVP stage or at a product market fit stage where early stage revenues are being recognized by the company, while you have a Sequoia Surge, which is actually backing idea stage companies. So it really depends upon the needs of the company. But what I would like to say is that now there is an ecosystem and ability for teams to be able to approach investors agnostic of the stage of life cycle.
Which brings me to my next question, which is spray or pray chalta hai ke nahi? Does spray and pray to VCs work? And I say this because a lot of times we get decks where I'm like, wait, this doesn't even fit the criteria. Did you even look at us before you? So I just want to understand what your thoughts are on that technique.
Yeah, so my thoughts on this is that essentially one needs to focus your activity of capital raising rather than spray and pray, because there are different investors which focus on different themes and categories and with very diverse appetites. For example, there are venture capitalists and investors which focus a lot on fintech. On the other hand, there are venture capitalists who like the theme of marketplaces. So it really depends upon the venture capitalists, in their favorite word when they say they build a thesis. So what thesis have you all kind of built around a particular sector category and a business model? So I think it's always good to start spending time with venture capitalists and investors who are also investigating a particular sector category or a type of a business, rather than just going all in and approaching any venture capitalist. The other thing is that in early days, it's interesting to also kind of co-develop and brainstorm as you kind of uncover stuff, right? Because there are multiple directions for any team to take. So in early stage, it's really good to think of your prospective investors as your partners, and that's the thought prism which teams should have when they are approaching investors.
What do you mean by that? Expand on that a little bit, please.
So what I mean by saying is that, let's say if one is thinking of an idea of building a artisans marketplace, and there are various ways to do it. There could be one route to say, look, should I go captive inventory model? Should I go open marketplace model? And when one is developing such ideas, imagine there is an investor out there who has had experience in building two-sided systems, who has had experience in dealing with SME type of businesses, who's had experience dealing with similar or adjacent lines of business. So trying to develop such ideas with such investors is going to be very valuable for both sides, because what happens is that the investor gets to know the entrepreneur gets to know the investor. And I think the journey moves beyond just supply of money to partnership.
Nice. That's actually a great thought. So you're saying basically create build a relationship right from the early days, so that the investor, because a lot of times it's not blind capital that you're taking, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get to know the founder, and so
Correct.
it's really important. And I think that's a really valid point.
Right.
Investment banker, and how important are they at early stages? Does that give you credibility, or does it make a difference?
Yeah, I would say that in early stages, I wouldn't encourage dealing with an investment banker, because in the early stages, the way you understand your business and the way you understand your personal mission and vision and objects, I think it's very hard for a third party investment banker to realize and to translate the same passion to a third party investment fund. I would highly discourage people from in early stages to outsource this activity. This actually is a very, very core part, because one is that a person or a team is indulging in trying to acquire capital for the company, but at the same time, there's a huge learning cycle also happening during these days. Because when companies are approaching venture capitalists like you, Anisha, they're not just pitching their idea, but they're also getting a lot of feedback loop, and they're also learning a lot. And
I'm
hence,
used to the VC as opposed to the founder tag. So when you said it, I was like, who's he talking about? Anyway.
that, that's that's your new avatar, right? So hence the VC tag.
Yeah.
But what I'm basically trying to say is this, that there's a lot of feedback loops and learning loops also happening. And if you were to outsource this activity to a third party iBanker, I think you're also killing your learning loops. Even when I was, for example, thinking about my current business, I did talk to many people. And when I was talking to people, there was a lot of feedback loops which were coming. And there was a lot of learning and course correction in the way I wanted to kind of orchestrate what today is INDMoney. So I think it's a very important thing one should not outsource this activity. One should not give it away to a third party investment banker.
Okay, cool. Which brings me to projections, because I think that's the next heart of everything, right? I mean, the financial model. What is it that, how detailed do you need to be on it? What are some of the core things that an investor would look at? And I'm talking sector agnostic, right? Some of the core things that anybody would look at. You've looked at so many companies.
Yeah.
So just, can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I'll restrict the answer to early stages, right? Because you don't,
please,
right?
Yeah.
So I think what the investor is looking at is what is the thinking process of the team and the founder. How are they able to think through their business model, their unit economics, their future forecast, the drivers? How are they able to think through and orchestrate that in a financial model? I think it is a very important thing for entrepreneurs and teams to be able to think about a financial model right in the beginning. And what a venture capitalist or an investor is looking at is the thinking process and the ability for that model to scale, right? These are the two things that a venture capitalist or investor is seeing, which is basically what is the addressability of the market, what is the headroom for growth, and how is the team and the entrepreneur thinking about the business model problem. That's really the crux. It's less about building a more predictable business model, because mostly I would like to definitely say, in my experience, the business plan that you build in year one, which is for the next 5-7 years, it never looks the same. It's always changes.
Sure.
What really happens is that by doing that rigorous, treacherous exercise, we as entrepreneurs are able to realize a lot of unanswered questions. We are able to really think through a lot of problems, which, when we are just looking at it from a tech and a product management perspective, we miss. And this really intersects the rational aspect of a business with the creative aspect of the business. So that's really what the venture capitalists and investors are looking at. What's the thought process? What is the thinking on behind? What are the economics? What is the addressability of the market? And I think it's a very important exercise, even though there is a lot of guess assumption work and a lot of forecasting work and projection work. But I feel it's a very, very critical exercise which everyone should do.
So I've had a lot of people talk to us, right? And the first concern that they have when they're going to approach VCs is about equity and diluting equity. Is that the main point that every entrepreneur should be looking at, or are there bigger things in this relationship of an entrepreneur founder and a VC that they should be focusing on rather than just missing the plot on this one?
Yeah, I think obviously there should not be disproportionate dilution, Anisha. That should not happen in early days, for the simple reason that the journey is going to be quite long. and obviously you don't want that skin in the game of both entrepreneur and team is like diminished.
Yeah.
Okay. We've clearly seen through a lot of data that there is a lot of demotivation when that diminishing happens. So there has to be some prudence, from that point of view. It shouldn't be that like on day one, somebody gives up 60-70% of the company.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the discussions around 5-10% here and there one should not waste time around those discussions.
Yeah.
That 5%, 7% here or there, because I think time is of essence. And what is really most important, I would put the maximum premium is the partnership between the early stage investor and the entrepreneur and the team. I would really put that as the most prime important thing, because beyond money, can the venture capitalist, participate in adding value to the company? I think that's the maximum premium that both sides should be looking at.
Cool. Yeah, I completely agree. I think in that negotiation of 2%, 1%, we forget some of the important facets.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you so much for doing this. I just want to know from you, if I was an early stage fund going out to raise, are there any words of advice that you have for me in terms of, just in general, getting to the market, and also the fact that we're in such trying times?
Right. So you're saying early stage fund or early stage company?
Early stage company.
Okay. You nicely toggle between the two. Okay.
Sorry.
So I think early stage company needs to really be excellent at defining the problem that they are solving and how are they solving when they go out, and they need to do that exercise very, very honestly. So I think that's the first thing, that here is a problem and here is the way I'm solving the problem, and that needs to get articulated in a very simplistic manner. So what really happens is that a lot of early stage companies, they get to a problem, they're trying to solve it, but the narrative of that solution is very complex. So what I call this is like my grandmother test. So if that early stage founder within few seconds cannot explain to you as a venture capitalist, Anisha, that listen, what is the problem he's solving and what's the solution in a very simple way, or what is the purpose, then I think he's lost you and he's lost the whole market, right? Because you got to keep that solution narration very, very simple. And that's what I think a large percentage of early stage companies make a lot of mistakes with, not getting the narrative right. They go all over the place. They try to, do many things. And as a result, it's very difficult for you to digest. And if you can't digest, customers will never be able to digest. Employees will never be able to digest. The constituents won't be able to digest. So I think that's the first thing, the solution, problem, solution, narration. That's the first thing that they need to do really slickly and really well. The second thing they need to talk about is, what is the addressability of the market, right? At the end of the day, when we raise money from venture capitalists, you want to build a scalable business. Okay, if you're going to build a boutique business, we don't come to Anisha's company, right? If you want to build a scaled business, you have to be doing something in a large addressable market. So that's the second thing that they need to really address, in a very clear manner, that why is the addressable market big enough, and what is the opportunity and why would people embrace their particular service. I think these two are very important. Beyond that, they need to obviously showcase the team. Sometimes it will be individuals with a lot of credibility. Sometimes it will be a bunch of team members with a lot of credibility. That becomes a very, very important thing. And depending upon the stage of life cycle, I think if I am a venture capitalist, I would really, really want to see that does this team have execution capability, right? Many a time you'll have a brilliant idea, large addressable market, excellent, brilliant team with great credentials. Everything is in place, but they don't get things done. Okay. They just basically talk English and they don't get things done, right? Okay, then. That's what they need to, these are the ingredients. If they can put together, they will have a higher conversion rate.
So problem, solution, narration. First, go explain to your nani and dadi. And if they get it, then you're set. Then the next thing is the addressable market, which I think, I completely agree with you. A lot of people come to us with decks which have nothing about the market. And that's really, really key to understand right up front. What are you getting after? Team and execution. All right. This is perfect. Ashish, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.